Hey, what's up? There's Christmas lights on this tree now. It's Christmas time. Also the season of Advent. We've been doing a lot of Advent reflections on this channel, on the main channel every Sunday and every single day on the Patreon. Go check that out. But we're also making other videos like this one. And I wanted to talk about the conflicted feelings that a lot of us have every Christmas time. Now, there's plenty of reasons to be frustrated with the way we celebrate Christmas these days, but one of the reasons I hear a lot is being frustrated with this phony peacefulness and unity that gets talked about a lot during this time. There's also a whole lot of Christmas movies about people mistreating each other, and then the Christmas spirit wins, and then they start being nice to each other, and all the problems are solved because it's Christmas. So many Christmas movies, so few plots, so little variation. All these Hallmark Christmas movies looking like that icon of icons. Yeah. Anyway, maybe that kind of Christmas time peace does happen in real life sometimes, but real life isn't a movie, and so when it does happen in real life, then we all know very well that the next day everything just goes back to normal, and we go back to the typical problems we all have. Because reconciliation between random individuals does not impact the larger systemic causes for the social and economic inequality and discrimination that we face today. One Scrooge being nice to one family does not change the problems that create Scrooge-like figures who have too much power and exploit working class people. Christmas time just being a season where we have to ignore all that and just smile and eat with your family is a problem. It makes sense why a lot of people don't like that part of Christmas time these days. But these Christmas peacetime stories perpetuate this myth about how peace is achieved. And the argument that supports this myth says that we just need to set aside our differences and just talk. And if we did more of that, then our social ills would be solved.
Your opinion, what are the three most pressing obstacles that we face as Americans?
Okay, well, I think the number one issue that comes to mind is the inability to have conversations.
But solving our problems isn't that easy. Melissa Flora Bixler just put out this book this year, How to Have an Enemy, Righteous Anger, and the Work of Peace. If you like this channel, then you'll like this book, so check it out. And in the first chapter, she references this story about the legendary Christmas truce in 1914 during World War I. During a ceasefire, French, British, and German soldiers crossed the trenches and spoke to one another. They even exchanged food and souvenirs and played football and sang Christmas carols together. And the story goes that when the ceasefire was over, many of these soldiers couldn't bring themselves to pick up their weapons again after this experience of interacting with their enemies, and those soldiers were punished and had to be replaced. This story has been adapted many times, but has also been used in a whole lot of sermons. You may have heard this story in a sermon before to make the larger point that just speaking to one another could solve so many of our problems of violence. But here's the truth. That Christmas truce was not spontaneous. It was planned by the officers commanding those soldiers. And no soldiers were punished for participating in the truce or for refusing to fight again, because in reality, all those soldiers returned to battle on December 26th and continued fighting. But this one moment was blown up into this sort of fable to teach people about how peace can be achieved through just talking to each other and getting to know one another. But it also plays on this myth that the only thing keeping people antagonistic toward one another is like a misunderstanding. And yeah, we have plenty of conflicts with people based on misunderstandings, but don't use that explanation for these larger systemic inequalities and divisions. You can't say if we just understood each other, then that would dissolve the problems we have with each other. I'm tired of hearing people say things like people on every side of every issue are actually good on the inside and are just trying to make the world better and are just a bit misguided. But like I said earlier, this approach completely ignores the systemic causes of our division and inequality, and reconciliation between individuals does not have an impact on those systemic causes. Individual reconciliation can have a big impact on the lives of those individuals and can even greatly reduce harm in those individuals' lives, but it's not how we achieve peace. And making friends with people in positions of power that abuse and exploit us does not end that abuse and exploitation. It also reminds me of this article written in 1938 in Homes and Gardens about this politician's home life. And it talks about how every weekend he had many guests over to his mountain home, including state officials, but also painters and singers and musicians, and how he was a drawled raconteur or a great storyteller, and how he was his own decorator, designer, furnisher, and architect when it came to the design and colors of his home, and how he also uses his home to host a fun fair for the local children, and how he was a lifelong vegetarian and a painter, and about how successful his best-selling book was. And this article was about Hitler, by the way, and about Hitler's mountain home.
Wait a minute!
What is that? What is that?
But you read this article that's supposed to give you this like personal look into the life of this man, and you understand that you would be a fool to come away from that article thinking, oh wow, now that I've gotten to know him and learned some of his personal passions and all that, I realize he's not actually that bad of a guy. The material consequences of our actions can often say a lot more about us than our inner thoughts and feelings. Christmas time shouldn't be a time where we pardon those who exploit and abuse us in the name of love for enemies. A real love for enemies, as Jesus talked about, looks more like freeing our enemies from their oppressive positions of power and taking away their power to oppress us. That's what it looks like to love your enemy. Later in the chapter, Melissa Flora Bixler talks about how people actually fought for peace beyond this single moment of empathy, like German socialist citizens and soldiers who rebelled against the imperialist war. And in one case, 1,000 German naval soldiers were arrested because they refused to obey the command to fire on the British. Those stories are way better examples of fighting for peace during war. Fighting for peace requires us to end the oppression that we face, which requires naming our enemies and loving them by taking away their power to oppress us, and redistributing that power more equally so that the oppressed can free themselves, and so that we could rebuild a completely different kind of society, structured totally differently. That is how we achieve peace. It's a long revolutionary process. Not a quick season where we just smile and pretend everything is okay. Merry Christmas, though. And I think the true spirit of Christmas is more about what I'm talking about here. God becomes incarnate in the poor and powerless Jesus, signifying that God is on the side of the oppressed throughout history as they struggle for liberation. That is what Christmas is about.
Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about?
Let me know in the comments. Do you also get frustrated with this weird, phony peacefulness and unity during Christmas time? What do you think about it? Let me know. And thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to support me, go check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Damon Garcia. And thank you everyone over there who already supports me. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.